The results, as I said, from that North Carolina 9th Congressional District, polls closed at 7:30. Numbers may start coming in at any minute. We're always looking. You never know what poll numbers come in. I mean, the actual count is always tricky to go with. Meanwhile, a new NBC or ABC, a Washington Post poll shows that President Trump is heading into the fall with his approval rating still precariously low. It's down to 40% of registered voters saying they approve of the job he's doing. That's sort of near the low. That's 2 points above his low of 38 back in January, which is actually the low of his presidency. So he's a little bit bopping above the lowest level. Trump didn't like the news, of course, tweeting one of the greatest and most powerful weapons used by the fake and corrupt news media is the phony polling information they put out. Many of these polls are fixed or worked on in such a way that a certain candidate will look better. Internal polling looks great, the best ever, blah, blah, blah. Late this afternoon, a new CNN poll showed that 6 of 10 Americans, however, do not believe Trump deserves to get reelected. For more, I'm going to Heidi Presley, NBC News correspondent, and Eugene Robinson at the Washington Post. Everything he says is nothing's on the level. Yeah. Judges, juries don't trust him. Everybody's out for themselves. Everybody's playing a tribal game. Nobody's being fair. Everything about him, elections are rigged, polls are rigged, newspapers are bought and sold on their editorial side. Nothing is to believe. He wants to get into this, I guess the word is dystopian world, where everything is awful. And that somehow benefits the angry, resentful electorate that he's cultivating.
The polls have long been something that he's teed up. I mean, this was part of his shtick even before the election when he was gearing up to say that the whole election was rigged. But the problem today in these numbers, if you drill down, is that he's starting to lose in some core important demographic groups, including white working class women. We started to see some of that slippage with his attacks.
What happened, do you think?
Well, first there was the attacks on the female congresswomen when we started to see the slippage. And then secondly, it is always about the economy, and especially so for this president, because, Chris, you were out there in Iowa. I was out there in Iowa during 2016 talking to farmers, talking to regular, average men and women. And the reason why they voted for Donald Trump was they didn't love the way that he behaves on Twitter. They didn't love the way that he bullies up from the pulpit, but they thought he's a businessman, and everything he touches turns to gold. And
I agree with
he gets in there, he's going to do that for us. And now they're seeing that, in fact, we could be headed into a recession, that he passed tax cuts that are cookie cutter from the conservative playbook benefiting the rich.
How can you ever pass a tax cut like he just passed and argue that it's good for the economy when it's all that money's going somewhere?
Exactly. It's not, you don't see it. It didn't come back into the economy. It certainly didn't filter down to people in the form of salaries, in the form of money to pay their, health
they're all
care
buybacks by corporate leaders. They bought back stock.
Exactly, they bought back stock. And by the way, that $1 trillion that was supposed to be repatriated, remember, whatever happened to that? That's still floating around.
And the trade war.
Okay, let's talk about the toxic stuff last night. He was really going with all the dirt balls last night. It wasn't hardball, it's dirt ball. Every immigrant's a murderer, rapist. Everybody's evil.
It was like a greatest hits. And
the Democratic Party is all a bunch of socialists.
Well, he wanted to push every button he possibly could push to drive turnout in the special election in a Trump plus 12 district. Okay. And he's down there playing as if it's,
Wasn't that risky to go down there if he takes a loss down there?
Of course it is, because
I think he thinks he'll win by a couple points.
On it.
I think he thinks he'll win by a couple points.
He wouldn't have gone if he didn't think he would win. But it is risky. I mean, that race was tied the last time.
He wants to be part of a narrow victory. He doesn't want to be part of a narrow loss, does he?
No, but either way, it shouldn't be that narrow. And it is an
Trump plus 12 district.
A win's a win, though. According to the Associated Press, Trump advisors worry that moderate Republican and independent voters who have been willing to give him a pass on some of his incendiary policies and rhetoric would blame him, and in particular his trade war with China, for slowing down the economy. Now, if the economy really, I know some of the press have been talking down the economy. Some people just don't like Trump. But how do you think people are getting this sense that it's slowing down? Where's it coming from? Is this sales? What is it?
I guess it's sales, it's uneven employment numbers, and just the fact that we saw a sugar high off of the tax cuts, which has not extended into, it has not led to wage growth. And if you remember, the way that the president sold this was as a middle class miracle. It was not supposed to be a corporate welfare miracle. It was to help middle-class people and to increase their wages. And so I think that's where it's
You know,
The
I think
Census
some
Bureau
days-
came out with some new
Yeah.
economic numbers today, and for just parsing the numbers, it seems like people are worried about salaries. They're not feeling there's GDP growth, but they're not feeling it, and they're worried about health care because they're paying more for their deductibles, for their for you name it, and as a matter of fact, access, the number of insured or the number of uninsured went up this last year for the first time since the Affordable Care Act.
So how does Trump get back the numbers that managed to squeak him back into office even on 2016? He has to do something to win Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. He has to hold, of course, North Carolina that we were talking about today. He has to win on the numbers. There's always going to be a lot of angry white guys out there and some angry white women, but the numbers decide this thing.
Okay.
There has to be enough to win with. What makes anybody think he's as big as he was 3 years ago? Nobody
He didn't
thinks
get
that.
a ton more votes in a lot of these states than Mitt Romney did or that other Republican presidential candidates got. What happened was the Democratic vote was depressed.
Why?
So, well, I mean, some people say that
Yeah.
it was a lot of the negative attacks on Hillary Clinton. Others
Was
blame
it Comey?
The Clinton campaign certainly blames Comey, but there was a certainty that in places like Detroit, in places like Flint, in places like Milwaukee, the African-American vote in particular was depressed. In some states, they also blame voting irregularities and access.
We had Stacey Abrams on last night. Have you seen her in action yet?
Yeah,
She's something.
she's something
She's
else, yeah.
wonderful in terms of personality, look, everything, superficials. But then you realize, Yale Law. You know, her background is incredible.
Yeah,
And and a novelist. She's written
brilliant.
5 novels. She's a everything, a Renaissance person.
yeah.
And it put her on the ticket with somebody. Looks to me like a smart move.
Well, and it could happen, right? She's available. And,
she said so
and
with
she's,
Biden.
and she is
Other than she
she
keeps
is-
saying no, right?
I think
Well,
Biden.
she keeps saying, no, I don't want to run for Senate. She has not said, no, I don't want to run for
VP,
vice
you don't have to
president.
run.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.